All right, ladies and gentlemen, friends and foes, welcome once again to my channel. Welcome to another video. It's pretty late recording tonight. Um, been caught up with doing things all day, but regardless, in keeping with the momentum of the past almost 2 weeks now, we'll be getting into step 12, finishing up the 12-step series. So, step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, I tried to carry this message to sufferers or alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. See, I wrote up on the board, starred. I wrote sufferers. I did that because one doesn't need to be an alcoholic in order for these steps to work. One does not need to be a drug addict for these steps to work. One does not need to be a gambling addict. One does not need to be any sort of particular addict or contradictory mess for these steps to work. The point is that these steps work to alleviate self-inflicted suffering that is unnecessary to spiritual, mental, and physical growth. So in the first person, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, I tried to carry this message to sufferers and to practice these principles in all my affairs. The principle of step 12 being service. Unironically, this step correlates so well to the story of Christ. My cat's being funny, but I gotta hold her right now, otherwise she's gonna be rubbing up on the tripod. But much like Christ, the point of this story, or the point of this step, is that we've had a spiritual awakening. We've had an awakening of our heart and mind, and an alignment of our heart and mind, and thus our body as well. We've had this awakening, and because of this awakening, we realize that this is one of many answers that people are looking for in how to better their lives, better themselves, and how to my cat's being funny, and how to ultimately find their way back to stability. And that is to be of service to others. Now, so much can be said about this step beyond just what's written on here. The 11th chapter of the book of Alcoholics Anonymous is dedicated to this step alone, and that's for good reason. When I was approaching my first year of solid sobriety, it was required of me by my sponsor at the time to read this chapter 11. It's called Working with Others. I was required to read chapter 11 every day for 30 days straight. Once a day, every day, the whole chapter. And at a certain point, I lost count, so it happened I started at, I think, 43 or 44 days or something like that, or 45 days before I hit my first year. And so rather than just stop at 30 days because I lost count, I went from when I started every day up until I hit my first year sober. Now, a lot of the lessons that I learned from AA didn't sink in back then. It took, it took more suffering for me to truly get a grasp on what was being said. But just like Christ, who found God and went and preached exactly how he found God, this is what these 12 steps are ultimately about. And especially this 12th step, because we had that spiritual awakening and found ourselves connected to God in a way that we had never thought possible before, we find that ultimately it's our responsibility to help a sick and broken world, to help a people that have been lost in alcoholism and ego and drug addiction, chasing the wrong things, looking for love in the wrong places, looking for God in the wrong places, looking for truth where there is little at all. And it says that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics, not from other alcoholics. Nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. Now, swap the word drinking with whatever, sinning or being violent towards your neighbor, calling people names. Whatever the case may be. Replace drinking with that. Whatever problem behavior is arising out of yourself. Replace alcoholic with sufferer of any kind, and it still functions perfectly. It's a perfectly acceptable replacement or substitute. Now, I know from my own experience that whenever I was having a hard time with something in my life, if I was getting caught up in my own problems, if I was getting caught up in some sort of altercation with one of my fellows, I would find ultimately that if I reached out to help another person, if I reached out to help them find truth, if I reached out to help them find a connection to spirit in some way, even if I just reached out to try and see how they were doing, it would help me out too. And that's one of those things, like, ultimately, because we're all connected, what we do to others, again, that energy that we put out into the world, into this realm of consciousness, into the animals and people around us, that vibration that we put out is what we're going to get in response, and that is our reward. That is our profit. That is our reward for doing these things. And a lot of people look at that as such a negative thing, but it's truly a great thing, because it teaches, like, if you don't want to feel a certain way, don't put that type of energy back out into the universe, and so that's exactly why when in Matthew 5:44 Christ says, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that do wrong to you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. That's exactly why he says it, because ultimately, if we're going to base how we behave as individuals on whether or not someone is treating us in the way that we egoically think that they should, then we might as well just never move beyond where we're at. Might as well just stay exactly where we're at and never change at all. And if that were the case, if we were meant to just stay exactly the same and never grow, then I mean, it seems a bit pointless. There's certain things about us that must come to an end, and certain things about us that must continue forward and grow. And there's certain things about us that will change by bringing things into ourselves. And one of those things is a heart for truth. If you work these steps honestly and thoroughly, and you decide to to do something different, with yourself and with the world, then I mean, great things can happen, you know. But we're stepping outside of self and getting into service. Or, if you prefer, rather than service, selflessness. To be selfless. Right? Here's the kicker about the sun. The sun selflessly gives light to all those around it, regardless of if they're trying to blot out the sun. The sun selflessly serves all. The same knowledge that enables the surgeon to cut someone's neck in a precise way to stitch it back together is the same knowledge that allows someone to cut it in the first place. The same knowledge that led to the firearm being used as an offensive tool is the same knowledge that led to the firearm being used as a defensive tool. The same knowledge that led to the understanding of the human diet in a way that helps people is the same knowledge that enables those who would wish to do us harm through our food. So, what's the takeaway here? The takeaway is that we're trying to help other people and practice the principles of those 12 steps in all of our affairs. Everything that we do. That honesty, hope, faith, courage, integrity, willingness, humility, brotherly love, justice, perseverance, spirituality, and service. All 12. We're trying to apply those in every aspect of our life. Every aspect. From cleaning up around the house to doing our job as an employee, or being self-employed, or being a contractor, being a church worker, whatever it may be. Apply those principles towards everything that you're doing. And I mean, you as an individual will blossom into something far greater than you are now. I mean, to look back at where I was 10 years ago is kind of astounding, because 10 years ago, I mean, I wanted to fight the world. I mean, there's parts of me that still want to fight, don't get me wrong. But, I mean, everything about me was just angry, bitter. I mean, I couldn't stand the world, like full-blown misanthropy. I could not stand human beings. I could not stand the world. I could not stand the way it operated. And, like, part of me just wanted to check out. That's part of why I was, like, back then when I was a 20, 21-year-old, I was drinking like a fish, to the point where by the time I was, a legal adult, I was already so sick from the alcohol. I mean, I had very little options. And it wasn't even really the alcohol that did it. The alcohol was just a symptom of the problem. The problem was I was full of hatred, but more than just hatred of the world, hatred for self. I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to look at myself in a loving way. I didn't know how to take care of myself, and not like, oh, I didn't know how to cook or clean or anything like that. I didn't know how to, fold my laundry or any of that nonsensical bullshit. I didn't know how to actually look at my life and take care of those things that I wanted to keep. You know, my courage, my integrity, my hope, my honesty. I didn't know how to keep things in check and keep them in a state of balance. I didn't know how to keep myself in balance. I was so reactive to everything. And coming up, I'm going to be having a little, I wouldn't say a series, but a discussion about reactivity and how it pertains to, like, say, the periodic table of elements, because there's something to be learned just in that. There's a moral lesson to be learned in that periodic table of elements. Whether you're talking about the like the halogens, the inert gases, right, or the alkaline earth metals. I mean, there's something to be learned across all of them. From gold being stable yet malleable, and yet being conductive in a way that is productive, and at the same time still being so stable that it doesn't tarnish. It doesn't react with things around it. To helium or xenon or argon, in the way that they only react to light. I mean, I wouldn't say only. My chemistry knowledge is a bit lacking since I stepped out of university. Or I wouldn't even call it university. I'd call it community college. But I have a pretty I wouldn't say big, pretty well versed background in chemistry from high school to college. But that's not even the point. So, step 12, we're taking this knowledge and we're trying to impart it into our fellow human being. There's a couple things to remember about this. Not everybody's going to be receptive to what you have to say. And so, just like in Matthew 7:6, don't cast pearls before swine. This is where discernment, being able to see what's in front of you, really comes in play. Not everybody's going to be receptive. Not everybody's going to want to even entertain what you have to say. Not even in the slightest. Some people just do not care. They're stuck in their way of life, and they may not even see the problem, and that's fine. But anyways, had to pause for a second. But some people are just stuck in their ways, and they don't want to get out because they don't see that they're stuck, or they don't care to get out. They'd rather stay in a hole, and that's fine. Don't cast pearls before swine unless they turn around and rend you. I mean, they might sit there, and even though you're trying to help, turn it around and start attacking you. Maybe not physically, some people might. Maybe not verbally, some people might. Some people might just poke little, throw little darts that you might not even realize. And then after 20 minutes of sitting there, you're like, wait a minute. So there's something to be said about that in regards to Matthew 7:6, and also it talks about it in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous as well. I can pull up the page be page 96. Do not be discouraged if your prospect does not respond at once. Search out another alcoholic and try again. You are sure to find someone desperate enough to accept with eagerness what you offer. We find it a waste of time to keep chasing a man who cannot or will not work with you. If you leave such a person alone, he may soon become convinced that he cannot recover by himself. Remember, planting seeds, and the more that they think about it, the more they're watering that seed. To spend too much time on any one situation is to deny some other alcoholic an opportunity to live and be happy. One of our fellowship, AA's fellowship, failed entirely with his first half dozen prospects. He often says that if he had continued to work on them, he might have deprived many others who have since recovered of their chance. Something to consider, that not everybody's going to want to hear what you have to say. And so it's really about, almost like you got antennas, like sticking them out there and kind of feeling like, okay, is this person receptive to what I have to offer? Do they want a fish? Do they want to learn how to fish? No? Okay, then I'll walk away. It'd be pointless and insane to sit there and continually try to give a person a fish that doesn't want to fish. It would be insane to try and teach a person to fish that does not want to learn how to fish. So, don't cast pearls before swine. It's a waste of your time, it's a waste of your energy, it's a waste of your efforts and theirs. Because here's the thing, if they're not ready, even if they try it and they're not actually receptive to what you're trying to teach them, they're probably going to fall flat on their face. At the first probably 5 times I tried the AA program, it was just like every time, oh, why isn't this working? Because I wasn't receptive. I still had so many of my own ideas left in there, and it wasn't until I actually said, okay, I'll try it your way, that I started seeing how the program could benefit me. And then I learned how it could benefit other people, regardless of if they're having problems with alcohol or, whatever other sort of issue there might be. Anyways, if you spend too much time trying to teach anybody anything, whether it's these 12 steps, whether it's the symbolism that I teach, whether it's the use of the symbolism in understanding universal law and principles, whether it's understanding yourself, it doesn't matter. If you're teaching someone guitar, if they're not receptive to you, stop teaching them. Stop wasting your time. Stop wasting their time. And who knows, maybe by stepping back and saying, all right, I think this is a waste of my time, and your time and your effort, your energy, I think we should just part ways. Who knows, that might be the wake-up call for them to realize, oh, hey, maybe I should do something different. Maybe I should listen to what this guy has to say. I want to learn, but maybe I'm just in the wrong spot. Who knows what might happen? So, if they're not willing to listen, wipe your hands of the situation and walk away. Shake the dust off your feet and walk away. They might change their outlook and their mind when it comes to this. Who knows? So, if you end up having a spiritual awakening from the use of the 12 steps, or the first 11, and then having a spiritual awakening in that 12 step, take it to other people, I promise you it's rewarding. It is rewarding. There's a reason why some people dedicate their entire lives to the 12-step program in AA, because it genuinely brings them not pleasure, but true satisfaction in the heart to help another person. And that's part of this whole thing that we're supposed to learn here on earth, is how to help ourselves so we can help other people. Because when we do that and we learn how to help other people solve their problems, it helps solve our own more. You know, it helps solidify within our mind, within our heart, within our body, the solution to our problems. And I mean, everybody's got problems, and it seems like half the world doesn't want to get out of them. They just want to sit there stuck in the problem and bitch about it. And I mean, hey, if that's what any of you want to do, then I mean, by all means, do it until you fucking find out how insane it is. And that's fine with me. I learned through suffering too. I learned through immense suffering, damn near fucking psychotic insanity suffering. That's how I learned. You know, I learned by being an alcoholic to the point where I was fucking just completely torn apart. Fucking alcoholic hepatitis, pancreatitis, you know, stomach problems like crazy. Eating like garbage led me to more stomach problems. On top of the alcohol and various other things I was doing, and, you know, the lazy sort of behavior, and, you know, lack of sleep, and not taking care of myself, not brushing my teeth. I mean, I came to understand that these were bad behaviors because it led me to suffering, and that suffering led me to understand that I had to do something a little bit different with the way I was thinking, acting, and ultimately feeling, you know. So, again, if you benefit from this, bring it to other people. You know, like, you don't have to be an alcoholic for a 12-step program to work. It's about finding your way to spirit. And once you find your way to spirit, I mean, why not teach other people? Especially if they are receptive. If they truly want to learn, then you're doing yourself and them a disservice by not bringing them up to some spiritual knowledge. And that's part of why I step out of my comfort zone and I get on camera to try and teach people a thing or two about what I've learned along my journey, you know. Is because it does help me in the long run, but ultimately, I mean, I see the need to help other people. Again, I've created so much fission in the world through the way I thought, felt, spoke, and behaved, that the only solution that I see to that fission is ultimately infusion. And that also means fusion in the fission too. You know, so I mean, the 12-step series has been it's been something that's been kind of a wild ride for me personally, because it's brought up so many things from my past that I had ignored at the time, you know, things that I didn't want to look at back then, and over the past couple of years I've been forced to look at. And it brought it all back up to the surface, kind of like a reminder, like, hey, you know, you see now, you understand now. And so it's one of those things, we're all on this journey together, so I mean, why not help our fellow man out? Why not help that lost traveler that's stuck in the darkness find the light? I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. Seems like something that would be common sense, but isn't necessarily common sense in today's world. I find that a lot of people would rather demean and belittle their fellow man, sometimes myself included. I'm not perfect by any means. Definitely not perfect. You know, I fall short all the time, which is kind of why, outside of talking with my family and the few friends I do have and getting on camera, like I don't tend to talk as much as some people. I don't find a whole lot of joy in talking about other people. I don't find a whole lot of joy in belittling other people. Even when I do want to belittle people, if I do, I tend to have that, you know, that whiplash effect where my own conscience is like, hey, okay, let's look at what's going on here, and let's see how you're a hypocrite, you know. And having your own mind call yourself a hypocrite sounds Sounds a little funny, but I mean, it's humbling, right? It's definitely humbling. But I hope you guys